On this episode of Simply Offensive, I'm joined by Corey LeBleu. In our discussion, we discuss social engineering, application security, as well as physical pen testing. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Simply Offensive. Today I'm joined by my friend and former coworker, Corey LeBleu. Corey and I used to work together at my first pen test job, and we've stayed in contact over the years, and recently got to do a lot of catching up at HughesCon and talking to Corey. He's been on my previous podcast, or my current personal podcast, the Phillip Wylie Show. So I decided to talk to him about coming over here and doing an episode on Simply Offensive. So it's great to have you on, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good to be on.
Yeah, it was great catching up at HughesCon last week. So how did you enjoy the conference?
It was good. That was my first time there. Really enjoyed a talk by Jason Haddix on attacking AI.
Yeah, Jason's got some really good stuff on attacking AI, and because he for the longest time he did a lot of stuff on bug bounty, and then he's really got into using AI to pen test with and pen testing AI. So he's got some good content.
Yeah, this presentation was on attacking AI. It didn't touch on actually using it for pen testing, but really neat stuff.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background.
All right, so I've been pen testing since about 2004 professionally. I started doing network pen testing, social engineering, and security assessments, and eventually moved into the web app stuff. Found a few CVEs in the meantime for like Apple and Citrix web interfaces. And since then, mainly been doing application stuff with sporadic network stuff. Yeah.
So you mentioned CVEs. So if you wouldn't mind explaining what a CVE is for the audience members that may not be familiar with CVEs.
All right, so if you find a custom vulnerability that hasn't been disclosed before, in this case, we worked with the vendors to ethically disclose it, and it can be assigned a number called a CVE for the CVE database, so that there's a collection of vulnerabilities for people to reference.
And for the new folks in the audience too, when you're running your vulnerability scanner, this is some of the things that it looks for is CVEs. So what got you to what got you interested in specializing in application pen testing?
I just got bored with the network stuff. I was working for a company called Digital Defense, and that's where I found the CDs that I disclosed. I would just get kind of bored on network pen tests, so I started playing with web applications, and eventually got into that. Back when I was doing network pen testing, though, it was kind of before the modern red team era. I think that would have kept my interest a lot more. Back then, it was just kind of take over everything you can, whereas now it's strategic goals and trying to evade and stuff like that. It's just way more interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how pen testing has evolved, because nowadays trying to get a foothold is a little more difficult, because kind of reflecting back to one of the pen tests that we did together, back in like 2000, that was probably about 2013 or so, I would guess, 2012, 2013. But back then when MS 0867, that Microsoft vulnerability, if you found that in an environment, you pretty much guaranteed a foothold.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing it, Active Directory hacking wasn't as big, which that's really interesting now. But you just exploit all these vulnerabilities. And like for one pen test, there was this company called Foundstone, and they made these scanners for specific vulnerabilities. And they had ones for MS0411 and MS0539, which were huge, 2005 or so. So I ran those at one point and got a list of hosts, and used like Metasploit CLI to take over 200 of 300 hosts on the network for one pen test, setting a company record. So that was kind of fun back then.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how it's changed and gotten more difficult to get footholds in the environments compared to the way it used to be. So since you've had a lot of experience, kind of what are some of the most the things that stand out to you the most that have changed since you've been pen testing?
And like I said, the modern red teaming is a lot different. The shift into objective-based tests, testing the blue team, evasion, and also just Active Directory hacking. And tools like Bloodhound being able to map users and different attack paths within Active Directory. Because
Yeah,
as I
so
said, it used to just be, just have an exploit and let's throw an exploit at it and take it over.
yeah. One of the things I was just thinking about too as well is, the application pen testing has changed a lot because if you think about it nowadays, you don't see as much thick client pen testing as you used to. It seems like everyone's kind of shifted gears and changed away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some thick client pen testing. It's kind of fun just because it's one off. One thing that you always see is like them transmitting raw SQL statements. So you can do SQL injection, just modifying the statements on the fly. I swear I've seen that on 80% of thick client pen tests. So yeah, those are one-offs using tools like Echo Mirage. That's the one that I always use to intercept it. But a lot more limited attacks there, or at least more limited tools. Echo Mirage is no burp suite.
So what are some other tools that you use for thick client pen testing?
That's main. I haven't done it in a few years, so that's the main one that I'd use. Be Echo Mirage, and then just regular networking utilities like Wireshark to observe traffic and things like that.
So you
And
kind of
then
got I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there, your static analysis type reversing tools and stuff as well.
So how difficult is that for someone to learn? Because web app, there's a level of difficulty there, but doing thick client apps. So how difficult is that for someone to pick up, and what kind of skills do they need to learn to be able to do the thick client app pen testing?
I mean, it depends on how much you want to get into it. Like, the limited scope engagements that I've had a lot of it, like I said, is using Echo Mirage, which is just kind of a proxy. You can edit parameters. You kind of have to edit the parameters within the packet size or whatnot. It's not like Burp. You can't just edit wherever. So messing with the logic in that. And then if you get more deep into it, there would be more of the static analysis and dynamic analysis of the apps, which that gets into the whole reverse engineering sort of stuff. So that can get pretty advanced.
So I remember, in our conversations before that you used to do a lot of social engineering. So if someone wanted to get into social engineering and physical pen testing, what are some good ways to learn how to do those types of activities?
I really couldn't say. I just kind of got thrown in, just trial by fire. It wasn't really much of a thing whenever I was doing it. And the first one that I did was a credit union that was like on an army base. So trial by fire. Before that, I'd done like a few ride-alongs, and one guy that I did a ride-along with, he went in one time and saw like a stack of vacuum-packed money orders. So he marked that he saw it and, went on his way. But then like 2 or 3 days later, he came back to the location and the money orders were still there. So he took them and they didn't notice until we gave them to the network administrator who walked into the VP's office, threw them on the table and said, "Hey, you missing these?" And this was, stack yay thick of $1,000 money orders vacuum backed. That guy, his jaw dropped, and we weren't allowed to take things after that. There was definitely some blowback.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because I remember seeing some of the pictures you have of all the different fake IDs for badges and stuff you've created to get into different locations.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the IDs are horrible. Like, they were all my boss's body with my head superimposed, made in Microsoft Word. One of my bosses used to sometimes put they weighed 500 pounds on it because you'd have a badge that we had ordered online, and then you'd have it next to the ID. You flash it, everyone's eyes go to the badge, and then you put it away before they can look at the ID. And it worked every time. And these IDs were just horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. A lot of cases too. I'm sure you had this experience going into places where you don't even have to show an ID and could tailgate in. I would imagine you probably ran across a lot of that.
Yeah, and like when we're doing as OSHA or fire marshals, and a lot of times just if you look the part, it works. You don't even have to show the ID. You just act like you're an authority, and most people will believe it.
So, what's one of your most scary physical pen test stories?
You know this one. So went into this bank or credit union. I think it was in Dallas. It was Houston or Dallas. And there was a security guard and he was suspicious. I got in and out. I wasn't able to take anything. He was just on me the whole time. But he didn't call it. Well, he ended up knowing the actual fire marshal. So after I left, he called his buddy and said, "Hey, is this legit?" So he told him no, and that guy was pissed. So I got a call, "Hey, you need to come back to this location." I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm almost at this other location." I'm like, "No, you need to come back here right now." So I get there, the fire marshal's there. He is pissed. So we're in a conference room. Within about 5 minutes, I'm in handcuffs. He gets us there more. Eventually, like I'm in the back of his car. We're going to the police station, and he kind of eases up a little bit, and he's like, "Well, how old are you?" And I'm like, 25 or whatever. He's like, "Well, how much are you making?" And I'm like, 50 a year or something. He's like, "Wow, that's a lot of money for your age." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Not enough for this though, is it?" I'm like, "No." So anyway, we get to the police station and they stick me in a room and he's in the next room. And it's like one of those rooms that the wall is just like cubicle material. So I can hear him in the next room and he's calling the DA. And at one point he had told me that I was under arrest. At another point, he told me that I was not under arrest. So he called the DA and I could hear the DA yelling through the phone at him for cuffing me without arresting. So, got out of that one. That was my last social engineering engagement. I was already looking to get out of it because every time we'd have a close encounter, they would change the language on the get out of jail free card, and that made me very nervous.
I bet one of the scariest ones. Well, fortunately, I didn't do it, but when I was working, not going to mention the company name, but the company I went to after I left where we worked together, I got asked one time to do physical security in this for this building. It was on the other side of the border. It was on the Mexican border, and they were asking me to do this. And at this time, I didn't have any physical pen testing experience, and I wasn't bilingual. I didn't know Spanish. I just know enough to be able to order food, and that was it. But then I was looking at the contract and stuff, said whoever it is has to be able to speak Spanish. And then also saw in the contract too that they were going to have like an armed bodyguard with me. And I'm thinking, if I got to have somebody with a gun with me and I don't know the language, and you hear some bad stories about people getting caught across the border. So fortunately, I was able to get out of it. I don't know how that would have ended, but it was too scary for me. So I kind of passed on that one.
Yeah, it was the Wild West when I was doing it because that was like, 2006, 2005, 2004, 2006. So, it was legal gray area. Every time there's a close call, they revise the contract. And that was before, like, 20 years later, coal fire, they had that incident where they got cuffed and put in jail for like a day or two.
Yeah, and that was kind of an ongoing mess before that was finally over with.
Yeah, and I mean that's when it's a much more mature practice. So I mean it was still kind of stressing the boundaries of law and stuff with it.
Yeah. So do you think that they would have let you go if he hadn't have if think he would have let you go if it wasn't for him, if he'd have followed the procedures properly? Because it sounded like because the DA telling him you shouldn't have done this or whatever. Do you think that's what really helped you get out of it?
I don't know. I mean, we did have permission, so that was shown, but I'm not sure if it was them or a different client. I mean, I've had one before be like, "Oh, we didn't know you were coming as the fire marshal." And it's like, it's written right here in the contract that I'm holding in my hand, like with your signature on it. So, that clients try and get out of it because they thought they were going to get in trouble.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, some stuff you can run into. I was at a Dallas Hackers meeting once, and someone was sharing one of their stories where they were doing a physical pen test of a casino, and they went to several different places, they got into the last place. And once they figured out that they weren't supposed to be there, found out they're pen testing the place, they kicked him out and told him, I don't care if you have permission or not, I better not catch you back here again.
Yeah, so, like, after that, every job, I would tell them, "I don't do this."
Yeah,
I
that
was I
was
was done.
that was probably kind of hard. I imagine with having that on your resume, people see the experience and keep wanting you to do those type of assessments.
Yeah, I don't even know how many I did, but, like, for the first 20 or so, like, it's a blast, but after that, once the thrill wears off, it's just stress. The stress level never goes away, so, I mean, that's pretty nerve-wracking.
So you never got comfortable with it then.
Not too comfortable. My old boss at the time, that guy was comfortable with it. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's stressful going into specifically into banks and credit unions, you know? I guess it'd probably be a lot less stressful if it was just a normal business.
Yeah, I would imagine because certain types of businesses you go in a little bit higher risk and more likelihood of armed guards and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a bank, they think you're robbing it, they're gonna call the police. Other businesses might not have the threat of police presence as much.
Yeah, it makes me think of one of Jason Street's stories where he was doing a physical pen test of a bank in Lebanon, and he went into the wrong building. There were like two banks in the same building. He went in the wrong place, was able to get a foothold in there, and then found out he was in the wrong bank. And so fortunately, his customer was able to talk to the other bank and say, "Hey, you got a free pen test out of the deal," and he didn't get any trouble. I could just only imagine being in another country and messing up like that.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. He's very lucky.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things I wanted to discuss with you too is I know that you started your own consulting company. So how's that experience been for you?
So Relix Security, it's good. We mainly do application pen testing, but also, some of the network-based stuff too. And, it's different. Like running your own business it's a different skill set, and you have to do everything from, setting up the website to marketing to, I mean, you name it, you have to do it. You learn a lot of stuff. It's not, spend more time on business stuff than hacking stuff.
So what is the most difficult of those tasks to learn how to do?
I think the self-promotion and sales, like, I'm just, I feel weird sometimes putting myself out there too much on LinkedIn, et cetera, and just getting traction on that. Like trying to come up with content to write that's interesting. A lot of my content, some of it just gets nowhere, and then the good stuff gets somewhere, but it's usually I have to have a good idea, I just don't pull it out of my hat, like different vulnerability write-ups and things like that.
Yeah, it seems like the sales part could be really difficult.
Yeah.
And
Sales
so
and marketing.
yeah. And so what is one of your stories like most memorable or most stressful stories of yours as a business owner?
Having to fire a client.
So what happened for you to have to fire the client?
Basically, they tried to get me to fudge an attestation letter. I found a vulnerability, high risk retest. It was still there, so they were trying to get me to take it out or reason their way out of it or downgrade it. But I'd already signed an initial attestation letter saying it was there, and I just wasn't going to just throw it out just because they asked me to, especially when I'm not sure who the attestation letter was going to. Probably investors, from what I would guess.
It sounds
So
like
that was
something that
just,
could have some legal implications too.
yeah. I mean, I was telling my father-in-law about it, and he was like, "Yeah, they asked you to break the law." I was like, I was just thinking it was sketchy, but I was like, "Whoa!" So yeah, that was pretty bad.
So were you able to complete the project and get paid and everything for it?
Yeah, well, they were paying me late too, so that didn't help. It was just like the whole thing was like pulling teeth, and for the retest, which the whole attestation letter thing came up, like they waited till I gave them 90 days for a retest, and they literally reached out on day 88.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, and I knocked it out of the park too. That's the frustrating part. Like I didn't, it went extremely well until it just all went to shit.
So as a cybersecurity professional, you constantly having to study and keep up with things. So what do you do to kind of keep up with the changing technologies, and what are you currently working on learning now?
I don't buy as many books as I used to, but I used to buy every book that looked semi interesting, related to pen testing and keep on touch of it, top of it. Lately, I bought a few books. I bought How to Build an LLM from Scratch, which because I don't really know anything about AI, I'm learning it, so I'm having to do a lot of homework with it. I bought another 700 page book as reference material that I'm reading along with it, and I'm having to rebrush up on my Python. I'm gonna get through it though. I just kind of want to know how it works, more than just a black box.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's been interesting, knowing you over the years. Is one of the things I noticed your approach to learning, how a lot of people go out and take hacking courses or get hacking books, but I know you've done a lot of things like learning to code and working with Python, and now you're learning AI. A lot of people tend to skip over the learning the technology and try to jump into hacking. Do you think that's a mistake?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how I got started, I got a degree basically like kind of like MIS in data science, business degree. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Bubble just burst. Trouble getting a job. Somehow got pointed towards the CCNA. Got that and just kind of fell in love with it. I saw the power of networking and stuff. I was working help desk, and I picked up an old issue of Network World, and there was some guy talking about pen testing, sitting, from a chair in front of a pool. So I was like, man, I got to get into that. Started playing with tools, started looking at stands, materials, and stuff. There was like an old tool book by Eric Cole that for the GSEC, messed with that. Just started consuming as much as I could, and then started looking for pen test jobs. And there weren't really many out there. Somehow I wound up getting one where I was from, but I mean I was going to Houston and Atlanta looking for jobs, and it was crazy. Somebody in Houston told me like, yeah, security is not big here. You're wasting your time looking for a pen test job in Houston. Now it's like huge. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how the security jobs there are really flourishing. It's not too hard to find security jobs there. There's a lot of them anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've just always been kind of curious and tinkered with stuff. I mean, like I said, I have a business degree. I think it would have been more useful if I'd done like a CS or a computer engineering degree if I were starting out. Now an MBA would help me, but yeah, like I didn't really have the hardcore coding background. I've just kind of had to teach myself. Not really an expert in it, but I've dabbled in a lot of languages, just having to do little stuff here and there with dozens of languages, just, exfiltrating data from Excel or whatnot.
So what advice would you give to someone today that's wanting to get into pen testing?
Um, I mean, I always use certifications as kind of a learning roadmap. They aren't, the end all be all, but they can give you a good idea of what to study for. I'd always use them. Hey, I'm interested in this subject. I'll get a certification for it. And also, I know I think, presented some on like reverse engineering patient stuff. I would do that too, look at courses, um, find the subjects that do it. I also wish that I had, had more of a background in coding and kind of also stuck with one language more. Like, I mean, I know Python best, but at some point I was trying to learn assembly. At some point I was trying to learn C. I was trying to learn Python. I was trying to learn this, trying to learn that. I think a lot of my time would have been better spent sticking with one thing than dabbling in a bunch.
So if someone's starting out now, what language would you recommend someone learn?
I would say Python. Python, and then if you want to get into reversing and system engineering stuff, that's where you get into the C and assembly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too because I see a lot of use around AI with Python and stuff too. So it seems to, and also big data. I know a lot of data analytics stuff. They used a lot of Python.
Yeah, that's why I'm brushing up on it right now. All that AI stuff. There are lots of libraries for it, lots of scientific libraries, big data libraries. There are a lot of people that aren't necessarily programmers for their profession that are using Python, like, scientists, for computations and whatnot.
Yeah, you remember back in the day when Perl was the scripting language that you used to see a lot back in the day.
I've studied Perl too. Yeah,
It's just amazing
glad that's
how,
gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing how Python seemed to stand the test of time because Perl was out there for a while. Then all of a sudden, you started seeing all these tools, pen testing's tools and stuff written in Python opposed to Perl. Because I dealt with more Perl stuff in my IT days than I did really security.
Yeah, also there was like, was it going to be Python or was it going to be Ruby for a while? And Python just won out
Yeah.
because Metasploit was written in Ruby, and I guess those two languages were kind of similar, and Python just won in the end. It's got all the support of the scientific community, the AI community, etc. And like that whole book, that LLM book, it's all Python using libraries like PyTorch. It's interesting. It's a lot of math concepts I'm gonna have to learn.
Well, we're getting down towards the end of the show. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
I appreciate it. Anytime.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. And we'll see you on the next episode.